Welcome to the Hockey Writers Prospect Corner, a show with our top prospects writing crew, bringing you the latest news, analysis, scouting reports, mocks, rankings, and much more. From the World Juniors to the NHL draft floor, from the farm to the NHL, our team covers everything that happens in the world of prospects. So sit back, grab a notebook, and get ready for Prospect Corner.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Prospect Corner here at the Hockey Writers. I'm your host, Matthew Zator, and as always, joined by other prospect experts here, Peter Baracchini and Dayton Reimer. Peter, how's it going? We've got hockey regular season has started now as we're recording. Technically it started the Global Series, but now in North America, there's games being played now. How's it going?
It's going great. And yeah, you mentioned that games are being played in North America right now. An early game between the Blues and Kraken, which I was not anticipating that. I would have thought that, okay, maybe prime time, 7, 8 o'clock starts. No, it was like 4:30. So you know what? Season's back and there's a lot of news prospect wise, player wise. They're like, this is what we wanted, right? It seems like we've been wanting everything to take a big step forward, and boy, we're getting a lot of news right now. So yeah, really excited.
Yeah, we've got a lot to talk about to start the show. So Dayton, how's it going?
Oh, it's great. It's hockey season again.
Yeah, that's it. We got of course, junior leagues and all that prospects have started playing. I mean, they've been playing for a bit here, but now the NHL is going. We've got training camps are done, preseason's done. Prospects have made camp, pro camp, made the rosters after the open night rosters were announced on Monday. So yeah, lots of stuff. But before we get to that, I got a couple big stories that have been kind of going through the news. And the first one is the NCAA, involving the NCAA and the CHL. And they're going to be voting on potentially allowing CHL players to play in the NCAA, even if they have played in the CHL before, which has been long-standing that they're not allowed to do this. Even if they played an exhibition game, they couldn't go to any colleges in the NCAA. So that may change. Right now, the vote hasn't happened, but it could have a pretty big impact on the CHL because a lot of players could end up going to NCAA now. Peter, what do you think about this? I mean, potentially happening. I mean, there's lots of legal stuff that we won't get into, but the impact could be pretty big. What do you think about that?
Yeah, too many aspects on the legal side where it's just we're not legal scholars, we're not lawyers, we don't know anything about that. We're just here to talk prospects and everything like that. So, yeah, aside from the legality aspect, because I know that there is a lawsuit or being filed or a claim being filed as well as a result of that rule, this has big implications overall for both CHL and NCAA, because I think this basically stems from the whole thing where I remember a few years ago where Shane Wright had that option of you can't go to AHL. It's either CHL or NHL. So there's no in between right there. And then this whole thing kind of stemmed from that where, well, what if, CHL players had an option to go NCAA or go that route if, they can't make an AHL roster. I know that the same situation is for Easton Cowan as well with the Toronto Maple Leafs, where that age factor is going to determine it's either one league or the other, no in between. There's no stopgap. So there's a way that could benefit them from still playing, and the NCAA may seem like a little step or a cut above CHL prospects, because I know we're going to get that NCAA CHL matchup as sort of like a prospect showcase, which is going to be very exciting. So why not maybe cross over as a way for those players to continue their development, continue with their game, and have that go between if they can't make an AHL roster. But on the flip side of things, if you're the CHL, you want to keep your star players there, because if you do lose possibly a Shane Wright, I know that was years ago, an Easton Cowan, or other names that really fit that bill of it's either AHL or CHL or junior team NHL, nothing in between, that puts a damper on the CHL team, because you're losing a marquee name where they're able to continue and they're going to benefit the NCAA more. So there's pros and cons to each side where it could still benefit a player's development, but also one league is going to be affected more than the other because there's probably going to be no crossover gap with NCAA players going to CHL. Why would that happen? They're in the
Yeah.
scholarship. They got everything. They got their roster spots kind of thing. So it's going to be interesting to see how this vote will play out in regards to eligibility because it's tough. I think there needs to be a little bit more of an AHL clause, or the AHL clause needs to be more amended than maybe a NCAA one, where at least they're going to the farm team of the NHL team as opposed to going to a different team or a collegiate university. But then again, if they want to get I believe I'm not sure what the scholarship implications will be, but if they sign with the NCAA team, then they push somebody who's maybe on a scholarship out as well. So we don't know. There's a lot of working pieces to this, I'm thinking at the top of my head of what possibly could happen. So it's going to be interesting to see what can happen. I think more there needs to be a clause for AHL more so than a CHL NCAA agreement, but we'll see what happens because this could be a big stepping stone for a lot of prospects in that in-between phase.
Yeah, you make a good point with the AHL thing. I mean, I think that needs to change too. That's been talked about a lot. But I mean, yeah, that gives them another avenue to maybe go the NCAA route, and they could make it go to NHL team again. They can leave. And also that free agency thing with the NCAA, which is another, wrinkle.
Yeah.
So it would have a lot of implications. And, the vote expected, the decision is not expected until Wednesday of this week, but the earliest. I mean, that may not even happen on Wednesday, but we're going to have a indication of this pretty quick. Dayton, what about you? What do you think about this? I mean, of course, you cover a team in the CHL, so what type of implications do you think will be if this actually goes through a vote in favor of this?
Well, as Peter was talking, an analogy dawned on me. It's a little bit weird, so stick with me. We're all Canadian, and I'm sure we all remember when marijuana was legalized.
Yep.
It's kind of a big thing. And there was lots of stuff out there that's like, it's going to have so many more, people are going to use it more, and there's going to be this huge boom. And so pot shops keep popping up everywhere. Here in Saskatoon, it seemed like there was every other block was a new pot shop, and they all had terrible names. And you knew that was going to come down. And the boom actually never really came. Like, you didn't get a whole bunch of new people using. You just had the users who were already, buying the stuff, buying it from different places. I think that's kind of what you're going to get with the NCAA and the CHL is you're going to get a few guys who are really interested in going to the NCAA. You might even get some, actually probably won't get any others because they're older guys who are playing in the NCAA. So you won't get it reversed, right? You're done at 20 years old, 21 in the CHL, whereas NCAA, you can play, I mean, really as long as you're enrolled or you have a spot on the team, 25, 26, 27, you could reasonably be on the team at that age. So yeah, I think you'll have a few guys go over. I don't know if it's going to be a ton of high profile guys because each league has their benefits, right? The NCAA is a much shorter schedule, so you're not getting as much playing time, but you are getting education and you are getting a lot more, workout time, which is great. The CHL has a lot bigger schedule, so you're going to be playing a lot more, and you can play younger. You can start playing at 16 with a decent role, like Gavin McKenna. He is doing things that I don't think I've ever met a 16-year-old capable of doing. Speaking as someone who has worked in schools for almost 10 years. So yeah, I think, it's fun. I think it'll open some doors for a few of the guys who are looking for those opportunities to leave the CHL. I don't see it making that big of a difference.
You brought up a good point too about older players that are at the end of their junior career going to, Canadian universities. So if there's that option of NCAA possibly opening up, that may affect NC or Canadian university applications as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
Because I know a lot of Canadian players, when their time is up essentially in the junior, then they make the transition to, the Canadian or university level as well.
Yeah.
So maybe there's going to be that competition between Canadian universities
Mm-hmm.
and then American universities right there. So
That is a good point. I
Yeah.
mean, it may turn into like CFL, NFL type thing where, you go between the different leagues, but yeah, I mean, that's a little higher level, but I mean,
Maybe.
yeah,
NCAA is
Yeah.
it will be interesting to see how all this all plays out, because I think ultimately they probably will vote for it. But yeah, you never know.
One thing I just realized though, what's going to happen to Junior A?
yeah,
Yeah,
Because a lot of Canadians who are looking to play NCAA play Junior A instead before
right.
they go into NCAA.
yeah. And
They don't have
Junior A
to
is
do
a
that
big.
if that vote
Yeah.
passes.
They're also a big league that gets scouted for NHL draft, like the
Mm.
OJHL,
Yeah.
AJHL.
Yeah. And you'll get like a few guys from there, but they are a level below major junior,
Yeah.
right? It's a significant gap. And someone like Cale Makar, but I would argue that he didn't really become Cale Makar until he went to Massachusetts,
Yeah.
right? He was fantastic with Brooks, the Brooks Bandits of the AJHL. He wasn't what he was, right? If that makes sense. So I wonder if you're going to see not a lot of impact on the CHL or the NCAA. You're going to see a lot of guys leave those junior A leagues to play the better competition younger and head off to university.
Yeah. It's gonna be interesting to see all the ripple effects, I guess, of it, if it does happen. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on that for sure. All right, before I have another big news story that's come out is Quentin Musty, Sudbury Wolves, requesting a trade. And doesn't sound like the Wolves are going to trade him, but he's not playing right now. So, Dayton, what do you think about this situation? I mean, of course, the Sharks would love that he'd be playing, not just sitting around. Do you what ultimately will this have? What will happen with this? Is he going to get traded, or I mean, I don't know.
Oh yeah, he'll get traded.
Yeah,
This is not a new situation, and I feel like the reporting is suggesting that it is.
true.
Like, oh no, what are we going to do with Quentin Musty? Well, he's going to get traded. Junior kids have sat out before. It's like, I'm not going to play. And so the junior team's like, all right, you're gone. You can go play somewhere else. And, usually it works out for everybody. You'll get junior teams will make crazy trades all the time. And it's fantastic. Like, what was it last year? We were talking about some of the giant trades that happened at the deadline with Matthew Savoy acquiring or getting the Wenatchee Wild, like, what is it, a dozen draft picks? It was insane. And it's like those trades are fun. And those trades are possible when you only know you'll have guys for 4 years max.
True. Yeah.
So Quentin Musty probably gone to the NHL next year. Who's making a playoff push?
Yeah.
There you go. Make
Probably
the trade.
Where he's going to go.
Because he'll play. He just doesn't want to play with that team for whatever reason.
Yeah. That hasn't come out of why he wants a trade. But Peter, what do you think about this situation? I mean, it probably will get traded, but I don't know. It's tough because the Sharks probably want this to be resolved pretty quickly, but they have no control over it. So
maybe because of the fact that they not necessarily own his rights. I don't know if he signed his ELC yet, but you would expect that the NHL team would try and sway the junior team to try and say, hey, we see potential in this guy. We liked him at camp. He made it this far. We feel like there's some things that he needs to improve on. If he doesn't want there, I think the NHL team needs to have some say and say, you know what, just make it happen. You're not like he's going to be gone at some point anyways, right? Like Dayton said, I think he's got one more year. This is his last year, and then probably he's going to move on to like the AHL, NHL, possibly further down the line anyways. So like Dayton said, why not send him to a contending playoff team? I mean, we heard that. It's basically the same situation as Colby Barlow just a few weeks ago, where he didn't want to go back to the Owen Sound attack. Owen Sound traded him to Oshawa. Oshawa is going to be a legitimate team this year, making a deep playoff run. So why not? I don't know if, Sudbury would trade him to, let's say, Brampton, because Brampton already made the major acquisition with Carson Rakoff.
Mhm.
But who's to say that, maybe London can't join the picture, Saginaw, all these other teams that are like, top tier
Mhm.
OHL teams where they could easily package the picks, prospects, or younger players that they drafted and send them in for Quentin Musty, because I would for sure love to have a dynamic power forward like Quentin Musty on my team. So, yeah, it's definitely going to get resolved. I mean, when we heard that Barlow was going to get traded, it happened very, very soon. Or not
Mhm.
very soon, but like, a couple days later. So with news of this breaking, if they really want him to play, then the San Jose Sharks are going to have to say, you know what, just get it done,
Yeah.
get it over with. I know the Sudbury Wolves want a great package in return. I think any team does. But
Yeah.
there comes a point where if you keep him out because you didn't get the right package, the San Jose Sharks are going to be disappointed because he's not getting any games.
Yeah.
So it's got to happen at some point.
Yeah. And he has signed his ELC, so he is
There we go. Yeah. I
yeah.
didn't have time to check, but thank you for that.
Last
Yeah,
October he
so
did.
102
Yeah.
points last season too. I mean that, yeah, he had a heck of a season. And I know William was saying on the season preview that if the Sharks wouldn't have signed all those veterans, that he thought Quentin Musty
Mhm.
was going to be a guy that would make the team, but
Yeah.
it didn't happen. It's just too many guys on the roster to kind of push his way in.
So now that he does have his ELC, you could expect the Sharks to have more sway and push them to be like, you know what? We signed him. You got to hold up your end of the bargain and just trade him.
Yeah, true. So we'll see how it all plays out too, as time goes on here. All right. Well, speaking of training camp, preseason, all that, of course, the opening night rosters were set, and a few prospects made rosters that maybe were surprises, maybe not. But Dayton, were you surprised by anyone, or just some standouts that kind of made the opening night rosters? I mean, obviously, some of these guys may not stick around for more than the 9 games, but who kind of stood out as making the team?
I think the biggest surprise was Jet Luchenko
Yeah.
making the Flyers roster. I didn't see that coming at all. Um, Out of all of the guys picked last year in the first round, it was pretty much just Celebrini and then maybe Lev Shunov,
Yeah.
but even that was a stretch. But he's there, but I think that's probably because of injury.
Yeah.
I would expect him to head back as soon as they're allowed to send him back. But no, Luchenko definitely a surprise. And then seeing Seamus Casey with the Devils, didn't
Mm.
think that they'd have room on their blue line, especially with Simon Nemec and Luke Hughes. But I guess Luke Hughes is injured, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's
Maybe
still
that's
injured.
why they got him there.
Yeah.
Still a little surprising. Good for him. Final guy that was a bit of a surprise, Samuel Honzek in Calgary. He appears to be ready to go. Had a great preseason. And Calgary needs any sort of injection of offense. And Honzek seems to be able to bring that. So
Mhm.
right on. Good for him.
Mhm.
Yeah, Honzek was, I mean, there again, Sharon Govich is out week to week with an injury. So that, of course, opened up a roster spot, and he won it. So there you go. We'll see how he does early on. And yeah, really surprising about Luchenko. I thought he had a pretty good preseason, but I didn't think he'd make the team. He'd probably be sent back. But yeah, and Carter Yakimchuk, right to the end, he almost made it, but and he's back in junior. So I'm sure the Calgary Hitmen love that he's back.
I don't think the Calgary Hitmen had any doubt he was coming back.
Yeah.
That's true. It's true. Even if it was, this probably would have been just 9 games and he would have been back anyway.
Yeah. And even the 9 games, I don't think you needed to do that this year. Wait till next
True.
year. I don't
Yeah,
know.
but he had a heck of a preseason.
He did. He was great. He's just, you saw the things that he needs to work on.
Yeah, for sure. Peter, what about you? Anyone that kind of stood out making rosters?
Kind of surprised Logan Stankoven made it. No, I'm just joking. We all knew that was going to happen, but he was actually he was 1 game off from not being rookie eligible from last season because he played in 24.
Oh,
So
close.
it's a good thing that he's still rookie eligible right now. So I'm just joking. We already knew that Stankoven was going to be one of those marquee Calder trophy
Yeah.
front runners anyways. Yeah, no, basically what Dayton said about Jetlachenko too, I was thoroughly surprised that he was able to make it out of camp. And it's, he's got that, aspect to his game where he's basically a John Tortorella type player where
True.
he's got that work ethic, that drive, the speed. And I wrote his draft profile. I was a big fan of his, you know, in October, November. I'm like, I expect this guy to steadily increase up the board and become a first rounder. Maybe not as high. I think it may have been a bit of a reach for Philadelphia, but I'm not complaining because Jetlachenko was still a first rounder. So great to see him there. Um, Not necessarily a bad surprise. I think a good surprise is because the Buffalo Sabres need to start seeing some of their top prospects make the jump, and that's Yuri Kulik. Basically a top name in the system right now. I was surprised in the sense that they need some of those young players to make that jump. So seeing him on the first or in the roster because he's played one game, seeing him there, that's actually kind of a good thing for his development, for the team. Again, they're going to be in that in-between phase where what is their team going to be? Are they going to be an improvement over what happened last season? Can they take the next step? And can a guy like Yuri Kulik be one of those guys to help them push forward? Because he was impressive in the AHL last year. The skill set, the smarts, the awareness. He's got a lot of potential at the NHL level. So I was really impressed to see him make the team. I think he was always one of those front runners, but to see him actually crack the roster, I think that's a good sign.
100%. I think, and the Sabres, of course, 0-2 right now, but Kulik.
It's still early. It's still early.
He played the second game of that back to back. So, we'll see how he does. And of course, Luchenko was a pretty surprising. Atu Ratu made the Canucks roster. I'm happy about that. He had a really good run in the preseason. As it stands right now, it doesn't sound like he's going to start on opening night, but he is on the roster, and hopefully he'll get some games, not just sitting as a healthy scratch, but we'll see how it goes. I thought he was just really good on the third line with Garland and Höglander. So I'm happy that he's taken a step forward. I think he's faster, stronger over the offseason. And of course, we all know how high he was supposed to go in the draft and dropped into the second round. So showing a bit of that potential now. So I'm interested to see how he does early in the season in a pretty big role if he does play on that third line. So, Ratu being on the Canucks is pretty good. All right, let's move back to junior and the NCAA and a bunch of the leagues here. And some players have gotten up some pretty hot starts. The NCAA started last weekend, and had some pretty big standouts. Of course, a lot of 2025 draft eligible guys are ripping up their leagues, and a couple in particular. I'll start with you, Dayton. We'll start with the CHL. Anyone there that's really stood out to you as being really impressive to start the season?
Man, so many.
There's a lot. Yeah.
I'll limit it to one per league. I think that's enough. So WHL, biggest standout, easily Roger McQueen. He's been on fire. He's got 8 goals in 6 games right now. I believe that leads the league. I don't have the list right in front of me, but just an incredible start for a guy that's going to go top 5. He's got the size, he's got the hands, like he's incredible. That's a really special player there. OHL, speaking of goals per games, Michael Misa has 10 goals in 5 games.
Yeah.
I saw that stat last night. I couldn't believe it. Like that's incredible. And I don't know how much more you need to say about Michael Misa. He's going to compete for first overall. He has been kind of in that running for ever since he got the exceptional status. I don't know if he will be able to overtake James Higgins, because that kid's got a lot of things going right for him. But still, he's right up there as one of the best draft eligible prospects. And then looking forward to 2026, the Kings got a couple of guys, and let's go with Maddox Dagenet, who has 6 goals and 11 points in 7 games, as I think top 6 in scoring right now. Just so much talent coming up. And I think the QMJHL is going to be one of the best leagues maybe in like 2026, 2027. There's so many young guys coming up that are just lighting it all the time. I'm always surprised when I click on a player that I haven't heard of. It's like, oh, he's 16. Crazy. Okay. And that's always in the queue. I don't know. So those are my three.
Yeah, I mean, they're the two guys like Michael Misa. He's got multi-goal games in all but one of his games.
2 goals per game.
2 goals per game. Had a hat trick, has a hat trick already. 4-point game there. And all the games he's gotten tons of shots, and he's on. Well, he hasn't had a game where he hasn't scored. So I mean, yeah, he's on fire, and of course his team's on fire too. And they only have one loss, in OT. So yeah, it's pretty good. The Saginaw Spirit, who won the Memorial Cup, and they've got superstar fans this season on pace for 136 goals this season. Probably won't hit that, but I love the on pace numbers at the beginning of seasons.
Yeah, that's the best part.
On pace numbers mean everything.
Yeah, it's insane. So he's off to a great start. Peter, Dayton probably took all the main guys, but of course he said there's a ton.
So many
There's
more
a
after
lot of
that. I
guys.
had to limit it.
There's
Definitely
a lot of
more.
guys, so I'm sure you have some other guys you can choose. Who do you got?
Yeah, so I'm gonna work my way west or start west and work my way east or whatever. So Cameron Schmidt, 10 points, 10 points in 5 games, 7 goals, 1 goal behind Roger McQueen. So he's up there as one of those sharpshooters in this draft from the WHL. Again, you're gonna look at him 5'7", 160, 156. So he's much, he's a little bit, undersized, underweight, but man, it does not affect him. I mean,
Yeah.
he's scoring goals. Teams want to see that. I think at some point he will grow. He will add a little bit more muscle, but the fact that he's finding the back of the net right now says it all. One more player to watch out in the WHL is Carter Bear. Recently I've been becoming a bit of a fan right now. His work ethic, the drive, he has 8 points in 5 games from the Everett Silvertips. So look out for him because he's in the top 15 in scoring already early on, but I'm liking what I'm seeing right now. As Dayton mentioned, there are a lot more players to mention draft wise in terms of the OHL. Yeah, you can't discredit what Michael Mies is doing. It's absolutely phenomenal, but Porter Martone, I mean, I saw him live against the London Knights on Saturday, and he is every bit impressive as he is live than he is when you watch on on a TV screen, computer, what have you, because the energy, the intensity that he plays with, he like, you think players have it out of 10, he puts it to an 11. He goes in the full overdrive, 3 points in that game. There was one goal where he was taunting the London Knights fans. He was getting into it, mixing it up. This is a guy that can do it all. And I was a fan of his coming in. I had him ranked second overall. It's hard not to take him outside of that top 2 or even top 3, because I think he's going to win a lot of fans over as a result of that intensity, that play, that power forward game, because he can do it all. And as for the QMJHL, I mentioned him before, Justin Carbonell, he's got that great blend of size, speed, skill, creativity. He's a really, really great dangler, has soft hands, can put the puck in great areas for himself, the teammates. He's basically all over the ice in a good way, and he makes offense happen no matter what situation he's in. So, really happy to see that he's off to a hot start, 12 points in 6 games. Want to continue seeing more because I have him as a top 20 prospect. But yeah, he is definitely one name to keep an eye on this year because, again, we're going to say teams love that power forward size. That's if you're 6 feet, 190 pounds, and you got that speed and skill, teams are going to keep an eye on you. So I think he's going to be in for a really, really great season.
Yeah, lots of standout performances to start the season. I'll mention Landon DuPont. Of course, we mentioned him early on with having the exceptional status. He's got 6 points in his first 5 games in the WHL, which is a pretty good start for a guy that's quite young still. He's only 15 and has got 6 points for the several silver tips. If I can say their team right. On pace for 82 points, but whatever. He's off to a great start, but lots of names in the CHL to get going really quickly and hit the ground running. So see if they can keep up the pace. They, of course, won't the same, but I'm sure they're still going to get quite a few points of these guys because they're rated high to go in the draft, a lot of them. So we'll see how they all go. All right, moving to the NCAA. There's not as big of a sample size, but there was some pretty standout performances last weekend. So, Peter, I'll start with you. Who do you got? There's a couple obvious names that had some great starts, freshmen that are getting their first dip into the NCAA.
Yeah, it's really tough to find like the way that freshmen are playing right now because it's only one game or like two games in. But trying to find the stats right now, but it's kind of seizing up on me right now. But I know there's still a lot of we're waiting to see what James Higgins could do. He hasn't played a game yet, but I'm pretty sure that's going to be over very, very soon. I'm gonna kind of cheat a little bit and pick up a player that's already been drafted. I don't know if I'm able to do that because
Oh yeah,
there
it's
are a lot.
anyone.
Okay, anyone. Okay, perfect. So I am going to pick Zeev Boyum, University of Denver, 4 points in 2 games. Obviously, as a defender, the Minnesota were very, very high on him because of that dynamicism, the skating, the ability to be very manipulative with the puck, very deceptive. Just basically could do it all. He's a 200-foot player, effective in all three zones as a defender. Um, Really excited to see what he can do as the season progresses because there's a lot of potential with his game right now. Um, he had 50 points last season, probably on pace to kind of match that and go beyond in 42 games. So let's see if he's able to do that and surpass the 50 point mark and get a little bit higher up because he's definitely going to be a big fixture on the back end for the University of Denver.
Yeah, he got a pretty good start to his season there. So yeah, and of course he had a great season last season too. So we'll see what he can do in his next one. Dayton, what about you? Anyone that stood out from the first weekend of NCAA?
Yes, I'm gonna pick a goalie this time. Michigan State's Trey Augustine went he went 2 for 0. There we go. He did not lose in his first 2 games and managed to put up a 962 save percentage, which is almost crazy numbers. That's yeah. He's been kind of on the radar for best goalie prospect for quite a while now.
Yeah.
This based on this start, anyways, could be the season that he really takes over. I love seeing some of these early goalie numbers. They're just you have guys who are just putting up like crazy starts, and I hope it continues. With Trey Augustine, I know it'll continue.
Yeah, for sure. I'll mention Cole Eiserman. He scored his first in his first game and also got ejected. he had a game misconduct for a hit to the head as well after he's like a period after he scored.
I was about to say you want to see that bite, but that's kind of not the way you want to get ejected.
No, it's true. His goal though was nice. It was one timer on the power play. Of course, we all know how good of a shot he has. So, good start. Not maybe a good start for his goal scoring, but shouldn't be getting ejected from games. That's maybe they said it's a hat. He had a hat trick in the game. He had his first goal, first fight, and first ejection. So that he's got some kind of a hat trick on that one. Not a good one. He shouldn't have that. And also Michael Haig had 4 points in his first couple games. So good start, of course, with the University of Michigan. There's a couple guys, and then even in that same game that Eiserman scored, I got the Hudson brothers. That's a good game too. Cole Hudson had his first goal. Quinn Hudson, who's been in NCAA for a bit already, had 3 assists. So the Hudsons were taken over in that game too. It's funny because Lane Hudson leaves, Cole Hudson comes in, and now he just takes over his job, I guess. But yeah, Tom Villander had his first assist of the season too. So good start for a lot of prospects for BU. So yeah, lots lots of good performances in the first week of NCAA action, and of course that'll continue this week. All right, well let's move on to our prospect of the week to end the show. As of course we've talked about a ton of prospects, but of course there's so many more we could do. So I'll start with you, Peter. Who's your prospect of the week?
Yeah, this one was really hard to do because there are a lot of great standout games. I really wanted to pick Porter Martone again because again, that game against the London Knights just proved that everything that I thought about him as a prospect heading into this season and captaining the Brampton Steelheads. But I am going to pick Carson Raykoff. In the last, basically, I'm in his body of work in the first 5 games is. He's got 10 points in 5, 4 goals, 6 assists. Um, in the last 3 games, he does have 7 points in that span. And he did start the scoring off in that London game with a wicked wrist shot over the shoulder of the Knights goaltender. Really picked the pocket right there because of that sharpshooter mentality that he brings. Was a big fan of his play in his draft year in 2023. I said maybe he should have been a little bit higher up as a second rounder, early second, and now we're seeing still why, because he's very dangerous. 52 goals last season, 10 points in 5 games already. Like I said, not the first time I'm not going to talk about probably Carson Raykoff this season until he actually makes the NHL or at any point because he's so damn good at finding the back of the net. But yeah, he really stood out in that game, being an offensive contributor and being a catalyst for the Brampton Steelheads. So he's my prospect of the week.
It's a good choice. He's had a great start to the season and a great game there. So, Dayton, what about you? Prospect of the week.
Well, I've got 2, if that's all right. I went,
Thanks.
and I mentioned this on our last podcast. I saw the Everett Silvertips come to town to play the Saskatoon Blades. So I'm going to pick one from each team. First, Saskatoon. The 2008 born Cooper Williams, rookie on the team, has a current 6-game point streak. One of the best at least for the Blades. 4 goals, 9 points. Might be someone to keep an eye on. He's really got like a great work ethic. He really drives the net. And is showing that he has a really good, sense for scoring as well. So yeah, definitely keep an eye on him for next year. But on Everett, really impressed with Taryn Smith, the defenseman who was picked by the Anaheim Ducks in the middle rounds. I can't remember exactly where again, but he's got 8 points in his last 4 games and leads all drafted players so far in scoring in the WHL. He had 2 assists against the Saskatoon Blades. His last game, unfortunately, wasn't great. He went pointless against Brandon, but before that had a 4-game point streak, including 4 points in his very first game this season against Portland. So he is setting himself up to have a very big offensive season. Wouldn't be surprised if he hit that point per game or more mark by the end.
There you go. A couple good ones there too. I'm gonna go stay at home here and talk about Arshdeep Bains. He didn't make. I mean, technically, he didn't make the opening night roster, but it sounds like he may be called up in the next couple days. Anyway, they did waive Mark Friedman, so I'm assuming they're gonna be calling someone up, and that means Bains is probably gonna be the guy. But he had a great preseason, or he had actually first a great young stars. And then great training camp, great preseason, had a couple goals in his last couple games, a couple power play goals, and looked really good on the second unit power play and also on any line he was on. I really think he's going to be like an Alex Burrows later on when he's in his prime, because he just seems like that type of player. He'll be able to kind of go up and down the lineup and still contribute. Looks a lot better than last season, and he had a great season in the AHL to start. So I'm really excited to see what he can do, and hopefully maybe close to full time in the NHL this season. I just love undrafted players succeeding. So he's my prospect of the week, and we'll see if he can stay with the team to start the season. So, all right. That is another episode of Prospect Corner. I think every week we can do this to talk about standouts because there's a lot. I just do a whole episode of Prospects a week, but yeah, lots of stuff until yeah. Where I mean, World Juniors are, of course, gonna be something we'll be talking about soon. That's gonna come up pretty quickly, actually. And lots of fun stuff coming for prospects as we keep rolling through the season. But thanks, Dayton. Thanks, Peter, for coming on, talking prospects as always. And make sure checking out everything at thehockeywriters.com as we go through the season. I know, Dayton, you've got a new column, prospect of the week, but a Senators prospect of the week. I'm going to steal that. I'm going to do a Canucks one. But yeah, it's the great column to have and talk, just focusing on one prospect that's standing out. Hopefully there's at least one every week that you can talk about, but yeah, and make sure to check out everything that we got going on the site. And yeah, it's going to be fun. But until our next episode, we'll see you next time.